Jana here at Styles and Smiles. I just wanted to continue our little mini session on color. Make sure you watch the last couple videos that I talked introducing color. Today I wanted to talk more about permanent color because I know people have a lot of questions about permanent color. So we talked about temporary colors, and the first video I talked about the differences between the different kinds. So permanent color, obviously, it's what it sounds like. This is the color that actually goes in your hair and actually changes it from the core. So it stays on your hair. Sometimes it may fade a little bit, but it actually stays on your hair. So the important thing to know about permanent color, like I talked about the first one, it does lift and deposit in your hair. So with the permanent color is the one that you can use if you want to go a lighter shade or darker shade, anything in between. But you do need to understand, if you're doing it yourself especially, what different undertones you have in your hair. Like darker colors are going to have a red-violet base, and so if you're going from a blonde to a dark, you're not going to want to just pick a box color that says, oh, this is the color it's going to turn out. But if you have light hair and you put that on, if it doesn't have that red-violet base, then it may turn out kind of a greenish color, things like that. So make sure if you are picking out your own color, you figure out what bases that you need, what bases you already have on your hair, things like that. The important thing to know too is if you've had permanent color on your hair, even if it's kind of grown out, if it's faded, you can't really tell, it's still on your hair. So when you want to go change your color and you want to put on another color, you can't lift color, doesn't lift color, if that makes sense. So you can't use just regular hair color to lift your hair to a lighter shade if there's permanent color on it. Even if it is just like half of it down, you're going to get the lighter color at the top. This is still going to stay dark. So if you're going to get your hair done professionally, make sure you tell them your hair history. So if your hair is all one color or if it's multiple colors, make sure you let them know what you've had colored before, what you've had bleached before, what kind of color you've had it on before, because that's all going to be taken into account when you're getting your hair colored. So if you say, hey, I want to go blonde, or I want to just even go a lighter shade, we can't just use a box. We can't just use even our professional color on your hair if it has a darker brown on it. We can't just lift that out. So especially if you do something like a black that really stains your hair and you're like, okay, I'm done with the black, I just want to go nice chocolatey brown, still a dark color, but you have to try and get out that black or that dark color first. So if you have permanent color on your hair and you want to go a lighter color, you want to get that out, there are a couple options that you can do. There's what's called a color remover, and that can get some of it out, but that doesn't necessarily always get it all out either. So we use that, or we just have to end up bleaching your hair. And so in order to bleach out that color, we have to put it on and just kind of watch it, and sometimes it lifts funny. You're not necessarily always going to get a perfect even tone after that. So if you're trying to go to a blonde, it's not going to happen right away, especially that one. You really have to kind of just see how that color lifts out of your hair. But if you want to go just to like a different shade of brown than what you had, or whatever, then you can tend to do that, just kind of lift it to enough that you can deposit a different color on, because what the permanent color, since it lifts and deposits, but it only lifts your natural color and then deposits. So if you have that other thing, the other color on your hair, we have to lift it out with bleach before we can put the color on. So make sure if you have had permanent color in your hair, you tell us, because that's going to make a huge difference. So especially if you want to go to something really blonde, it might take a couple sessions of bleaching just so we're not totally frying your hair. So kind of like when I talked about with the temporary colors, we do have to get it to the lightest shade possible, so it can take a few sessions to get to that. It's the same thing if you want to do a permanent color, a different permanent color, and you've had a permanent on before. So even if you just want to go to a medium blonde or a lighter blonde, but you have a brown permanent color, it might take a couple bleach sessions depending on how your hair is resisting. So it can be a couple days. So a lot of times I'll do that, where I'll have like one day we'll do some of the bleach and we'll do a toner so you're not super orangey yellow, and then we'll come back the next day or come back a couple days later, and then we'll try bleaching again. I actually have somebody under the dryer right now, if you can see in the back. we're bleaching out some of her hair. It's super cool. We're gonna do like a gray silver in the front, and so in order to get that bleached out enough, she did have some old color on her hair. So she came in yesterday, did her first bleach session, and then we're bleaching again today, and hopefully getting it lifted enough if we can get that color out to be able to put on a cool silver. But again, with silver, like I said, it does take a lot of lifting in order to get it to that silver. So we'll see if we can get it lifted enough today. But yeah, so it does make a difference. So make sure you can tell where it is, because I'll use different bleach or put it on that part, let that sit longer. So what we did with hers, yesterday we bleached out enough, but then you could kind of see the line where her roots were lifting lighter than the rest. And so then today I put a bleach on just the part that had been colored, had her under the dryer chair for a while, and then went back with some more bleach with a different volume of developer and put that at the root area, so that will still be lifting too, because we do want that to lift, but I don't necessarily want it to all lift the same, since some of it's more resistant than the rest. And then putting it under the heat can help the bleach to process faster as well. So that's why I have her under the dryer chair, is just to help that heat to lift out her hair. So that's one of the things to know. So make sure, like I said, tell your stylist your hair history, what you've done on it. If it's just been bleached before, bleach is permanent, obviously, but since it's not a deposit of color, the bleach isn't such a big deal. But the thing to note with that is sometimes especially if you had really, really bleached hair and you go to put color on it, a lot of times that bleach, when you do a lot of bleaching, it can make your hair really porous, and it can make it resistant to holding new color too. So sometimes your new permanent color can fade out faster just because that hair is more porous, that it's not holding onto the color. So if you've had a lot of bleached hair, very bleached, and then you get it colored, you're like, oh, it's a great color, you go wash it, sometimes even that permanent color can fade a lot faster because of being that. So that's when you want to make sure, once you color it, then you do some deep conditioning to really like close in that cuticle and stuff too. But you want to make sure if you do that, you do the deep conditioning after you do the color. We found that if you have really, really bleached, damaged hair, and you want to do a good deep conditioning and then do a color, it's not going to hold the color either. I accidentally did that on one of my friends once, which it was kind of funny because at least she was my friend, so I could be like, oh yeah, your hair's not brown at all, because she was like super, super blonde. But it was like that spongy, like it was really damaged, so I was like, I kind of want to do a deep condition first. So we did a deep condition, and then I tried to do her hair just to more of a warmer brown, and it didn't turn brown at all, like not at all even brown. It was pretty much the same blonde, and I was like, oh, okay, so that was kind of a waste of time. But it's good to know that when you're worried about that damaged, bleached hair, put the color on first and then do the deep conditioning, because hair, it's like a sponge. It can only absorb so much. So if it's already super absorbed from that deep conditioning, it's not going to hold the color. So do the color and then do a good deep conditioning, because that will help it to hold more and then seal it down more. So maybe hold that color better. But then also if you're doing any highlights, bleaching, things like that, you want to do some kind of a good deep conditioning afterwards, just because that bleaching does open up that cuticle, and so it can just it exposes it to more environmental effects, but it tends to dry out more, it tends to break more. So if you do a bleached color or bleached highlights or whatever, do some good deep conditioning afterwards, and that helps to seal that cuticle down. So those are my tips for permanent color, whether it's highlights or dark color, just some things to know about it. And then just especially make sure you tell your stylist your hair history, what kind of colors you use on your hair, because it is chemicals, and we don't want to have bad chemical reactions and have your hair break off, because that would really be bad. So major thing to note, if you've ever used sun-in that's on your hair, be sure to tell that, not just, oh, it's just highlights from the sun. If you've used actual sun-in product, tell your stylist, because we can't put anything on your hair if you've ever had sun-in on your hair. So even if it's grown out and it's clear down here, you are not going to put any color on your hair until it's completely grown out and cut off, because that will make a major, major chemical reaction and your hair will break off. So just tell your stylist your hair history. Obviously you can't go back in time and only use good products, but now that you've learned a little bit more about some professional products and learning and knowing a little bit more, don't use those box colors because you just don't know what you're going to get. Go to a professional, you know, use professional products, and your hair will thank you, and your stylist will thank you, and everyone that has to look at you will just think, oh, she has such pretty hair. And wouldn't you rather have people think that you have gorgeous hair rather than, man, she's got some damaged hair? But that's all I have. Thanks.